Welcome to Logistics Business Conversations, where we talk with key spokespeople in the logistics industry about topical issues. Hosted by Peter MacLeod, editor of Logistics Business magazine.
Hello and welcome to Logistics Business Conversations. We're here at IMHX for a special edition recorded in person in our podcast studio. Today's edition is brought to you by MiTek and entitled Building the Future, the Role of Mezzanines in Automated Warehouse Design. I'm joined today by Nathan Miller. He's Key Accounts Manager for MiTek. He has a particular focus on automation. Well, I have to say, Nathan, as a provider of steel structures to the warehouse industry, MiTek's well placed to sit across it and spot the trends. So what are your customers looking for when they come to you for steel solutions?
I think that obviously there's a lot of questions. I think the first one is more about fully understanding how our structures, how steel structures, mezzanine floors play a part in automation and what they actually do. I think sometimes we will focus on the automation. You may not give the full consideration to actually how that sort of comes there and what steel structures do in that element.
I think the one of the key things we're hearing about is sort of maximising the cube, and by growing a warehouse upwards, you're enabling greater flexibility around numbers of pick stations, that sort of thing. Is that sort of growth driven by e-commerce?
For sure, it's growth driven by e-commerce. I think regardless of what industry you're in, obviously space is very much a premium. Obviously, if you can build up, you can get more space out of essentially more out of space, and that's kind of what steel structures do, right? They allow you to use all of the vertical space in the building, and I think that's going to be more important as obviously space becomes more of a premium. You
have quite a challenge, and I would imagine the business has changed quite considerably over the last few years in this respect, is integrating automation into a project. So you need to be automation specialists as well, don't you?
For sure. I mean, you've only got to go back a few years, and maybe the general consensus that mezzanine floor in its simplest form is to create additional space, right? And maybe if you go back 5-10 years, that's what we were doing. We were creating amounts of additional floor space in buildings. Now, as obviously people look towards automation and move towards automated solutions, it's how mezzanine floors are enabling that automated solution. So, it's an absolute range of things. So every automated solution ultimately has a mezzanine solution, but they're unique to that automation.
So your consultation with the customer isn't so straightforward as perhaps would be first perceived. It's a very deep and integrated conversation.
I mean, yeah, it's understanding what you're trying to achieve, what automation you're going to use, but not only that, maybe what you're going to achieve in 12 months, 5 years. What's the lifespan of what you're doing? What future-proofing do you need? There's so many different aspects to consider. That really, it's about getting all the information and then giving sort of an honest, consideration to where we might be, not just where we are now.
I have to say, Nathan, I got a tremendous insight into MiTek and its capabilities and its exceptional capabilities. In the latest edition of Logistics Business magazine, we wrote up a case study of a high street retailer, fashion retailer, that has a new warehouse in Heb in the Czech Republic. And what caught my attention there was you're working alongside other system integrators. It almost feels like an extraordinary amount of coordination that needs to be done. Could you talk a little bit about that project, some of the exceptional challenges and some of the exciting outcomes that you got from that?
Yeah, sure. I think MiTek as a company, we've built a reputation and a specialisation in these large major projects, and the one you reference is obviously one of those in Europe. It's on a massive scale. It's a automated solution which covers a vast amount of activities, and it's only natural in those sort of projects that you're going to end up with a vast amount of automation to support. I mean, for us, it enabled us to sort of use our experience and maybe be a part of the conversation rather than more of a third-party supplier or a mezzanine floor or steelwork as more as a commodity. Obviously, we were right at the table having these conversations about, this is great, but have you considered this, or what about this, or that looks good, but what about this? So it's a fantastic project to be involved in. It's still ongoing. It's been ongoing for years. So it's one that we really look forward to seeing the sort of finished article.
More than just, shall I say, rather naively, suppliers of steel structures, you played a much greater part because you were you were working across multiple languages. You had local teams there as well as international teams there. It's a big undertaking to get something like that up and running.
I mean, yeah, sure. Look, we're a pan-European company. Obviously, we have a strong presence in Germany and all over Europe. Obviously, there's a lot of local knowledge that goes into all of these projects in every region, right? The end product can look very similar from one solution to another, but there's a lot of work, expertise and knowledge that goes into every single one of these projects because every region's different, right? The requirements are different. There's so many things to consider. And we have had that experience over the last so many years doing these products, and that's experience that we offer to our clients ultimately.
So the fact that no two projects are alike, no two projects are identical, creates its own challenges. But I guess you would say then that you're well placed to cope with these challenges and to answer them.
Yeah, it's experience. Look, we've done a lot of these projects and we've experienced a lot of things. So when we can see something going a particular way, we can offer some insight, some advice, and I think that is really valuable. In these projects and these solutions are multi-million pound solutions, right? And as much sort of evidence, experience that you can share, it's all good.
So what's driving growth in the sector currently?
I think there's a combination of things. I think demand will always drive growth, right? But I think how you grow and at what depend on many different factors. So we have a lot of clients and a lot of projects which are phased, right? So they're phased based on anticipated growth. That future-proofing things is a sensible way to go, don't get me wrong. But there's other considerations, right? So we talk about future-proofing and we talk about making sure any solution is flexible and scalable.
Making flexibility, scalability is something that we don't normally associate with automation, but it feels like you're building that into projects now.
Yeah, if it's a requirement, then it's something that we can do. I think the thing with any sort of mezzanine solution is it is a part of an automation piece, but it can also be an infrastructure piece almost. So it's the first element that goes in, then the automation obviously goes around it. It's the base of everything. So automation to change is a tricky element in itself. Obviously trying to change your base or do structural works is a little bit more difficult, almost impossible in some working scenarios. So that's where the real considerations come to flexibility. How can we do this from a practical point of view? Can we extend it? Can we keep the building live? All those sorts of things come into the mix.
In a former life, I was the editor of a magazine called Flooring, and I got quite interested in industrial floors back in the day. It's such a critical part of a warehouse now, is the slab that sits under it. So what do you look for when you go on site? You've been brought in to a new project, maybe new build, let's say. Do you want to get involved in the specification of the floor at that stage?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's where we can add a big benefit. I think the challenge with any mezzanine floor solution is always columns, right? You want as least as possible. You want as much clear, unobstructed space because it then gives you flexibility with layouts, flexibility on changes, all of these sorts of things. Mezzanine spans can only ever be as big as what the slab can take. So there's considerations really early on, which really don't have a massive cost associated with them. It's more of a priority order where we could do big 8x8 metre spans. We've done projects with 20 metre spans.
So what would be the ideal warehouse configuration when it comes to forklift truck movements? Is 20 metres about as big as it gets?
20 metres is on the bigger end.
Uh-huh.
There's we've done a few projects at that size, but they have very specific requirements. You wouldn't ordinarily use a span that big if you had, because there will be automation. A decent span is just minimising columns. You need to see the shape of the building to work out what it is. But obviously the less amount of columns you've got, the more flexibility you've got from a design perspective, change perspective. It just keeps things clear and sort of free-flowing.
And so on a brownfield, you do an evaluation of the floor and its ability to support the weight and then specify the columns accordingly.
In brownfield, it's very much understanding what the constraints are. What we tend to do is understand what the constraints are, and that would be an option. So with no remedial works to the slab, this is what your solution looks like. Obviously, if we look at remedial works on the slab, you could possibly do this. It's just providing that information so that the client can make an informed decision about which way they want to go.
And what are the challenges around some of the technologies you need to integrate into your systems? For example, hanging garments, spiral conveyors, those sorts of things. You obviously need to consult very closely with the suppliers of those before you then specify the solution in which to house them.
You do. Again, every piece of automation has its own requirements. So it's it's understanding what they are, and also there's a practical element to this which is probably more important. So understanding the loading requirements, the deflection requirements, all of these technical aspects is one point. The second point is the practical elements of these things. How are these things installed? How are they moved into place? Those sorts of parts of actual getting projects into the realization phase are probably as critical as the technical elements, and I think that's where we have a lot of experience, and that's where we can add the most value.
Now, I'm not sure if this is your remit or not. It's something I don't really know too much about, and that is the supply of steel. Where are we with raw steel at the moment? Is it hard to get hold of? Is it expensive? Is there a good supply currently? Where's it coming from?
Yeah, steel is an interesting one. I think we don't have many supply issues with steelwork. The price is always one. It's always fluctuating. It can fluctuate, due to geopolitics. It can fluctuate to anything. So it's a challenge that everybody faces. But I think that will always be the case, if I'm honest.
And apart from steel, what other materials are used in your projects mainly?
So predominantly it's steel and timber based is our sort of core base product. Different grades of steel, different types of steel, and obviously timber as well. I think from a supply perspective, what's quite interesting, an interesting development over the last couple of years is people's sort of, or clients' focus towards sustainability, obviously using sustainable sources, and really understanding sort of the embedded carbon, the carbon footprint these products have. So that's something that's been quite interesting for us to really dive deep into our own supply chains to understand what our impact is. So yeah, it's been one.
So when it comes to, for example, BREEAM certification, you're very much part of that conversation.
Yes, I think it's a big piece, right? So it's a big piece on any automated solution is the sustainability aspect of it and the embedded carbon, and it's very much client-led, which is great because it means that everybody does it. When sustainability becomes more of a decision-making criteria, I think that's only benefit for the suppliers because it means we all have to up our game.
And just stepping back a little bit from the more specific topics, Nathan, here we are sitting at IMHX. How do you feel about the industry in a whole? Are you excited by what lies ahead? Are you challenged by it?
I think the industry as a whole is growing. It's great. I mean, it's a good place to be. There's new technologies that are taking off. I think from our perspective, a new technology means a new solution for us. Great learning curve for us to understand, actually, there's this new technology, it's strong in these arrangements, these are the requirements, and it's understanding how we can support that and essentially empower that automation to get the most out of it.
So where is MiTek placed geographically? Can you service the whole of Europe? Can you service the whole of the world?
We're a pan-European supplier. We have MiTek as a group of companies, as a global company. The Mezzanine systems product range, which is the MiTek that we're referring to now, operates as a pan-European supplier. Obviously, we've got headquarters in the UK, and obviously we've got headquarters in Germany. So from these two locations, we cover the entire of Europe.
From the perspective of a logistics editor, I know you only as a supplier of industrial mezzanine solutions, but actually the business is much, much bigger than that, isn't it? It's not even the core area of the business.
MiTek is a Berkshire Hathaway company, so that's a massive group of companies. MiTek in the UK and Europe is probably most well known in its residential sector, doing roof trusses and technologies associated with that.
Yeah, and it's incredible, isn't it? How what I perceive as quite a large business is actually just a small part of an even larger one.
Yeah, for sure. They're a really big group of companies, which is great. I think obviously we can call on each other and rely on each other for certain aspects that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think. So there's lots of knowledge there shared globally, which is great. It can only benefit us.
Sounds like you can add a lot of muscle to any conversation about warehouse mezzanines and steel structures. Nathan, as we reach the end of this conversation, I want to thank you for joining us here on Logistics Business Conversations. What are your hopes for IMHX? A week after the show, what do you want to be looking at when you're running through your business cards? I mean,
this week is a great networking week, and it's one that we understand is a really, really good networking week. We want to be touching base with all our clients, of course. We want to be meeting a few new. And we just want to be starting that conversation, really, to see how we can support people moving forward.
Listen, it's been a great pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you for joining us today in our special studio here at IMHX. And thank you also to MiTek for supporting this edition of Logistics Business Conversations. Thanks to you also, the listener, for joining us today. Wherever you get your podcasts from, please subscribe to Logistics Business Conversations to make sure the next edition is delivered straight to you as soon as it's released. Until then, it's goodbye from Nathan Miller, and it's goodbye from me, Peter MacLeod. Goodbye.